What if I told you that one of my favorite versions of the Sinister Six didn't have Green Goblin, or Doc Ock, or Venom? Today, I will be talking about one of the most underrated Sinister Six groups, the superior foes of Spider-Man. Now, let me know if you've heard this before. A group of D-list villains joins a group and they don't really like each other, but they come together and are unstoppable. Well, that definitely isn't this group at all. It's actually the opposite, and that's actually one of the reasons why I like it. But before we get into the dynamics, you should probably know who the team is. Shocker. I don't know why, but I've always really liked Shocker. From the 90s series to the Ultimate Spider-Man video game to PS4 Spider-Man, Shocker's always there. He's the best C-list villain of the week, but while making this video, I realized I know shockingly little about Shocker. Anyone? It's weird how Shocker is in a lot of Spider-Man media, and yet I know nothing about him. Herman Schultz was born into a crappy family. His mom died when he was young, his dad was a deadbeat, so he went into a life of crime. Not because he hated Spider-Man, but simply for the hustle, for the money. It's actually one of the reasons why I've always liked Shocker. Bro just didn't want to be poor. He tried to rob vaults, but he sucked at it, and he always got caught. So one time when he was in jail, he decided to make a device that would be able to open any vault. Yeah, Shocker made his own weapons, in jail, so I don't know how the jail just allowed him to make weapons or what kind of jail just has technology like that laying around, but he was able to do it. One thing about Shocker is he's been in every group ever, and his character isn't always consistent. Sometimes he's this serious thief, and other times he's kind of a scaredy cat goofball who isn't really that much of a bad guy. He's just a guy who wants money, which is my preferred characteristics for him. Shocker is peak and part of this team. Boomerang is a D-list villain. He's kind of the main character of this story. Fred Myers was a former baseball player who started to lose on purpose for the mob, and he would eventually get kicked out of the league for the scandals. He was approached by people for a job, and because he was born in Australia, they called him Boomerang and gave him exploding boomerangs. He created this new group because he was tired of being a follower for other villain groups, and he is a narcissistic jerk. He doesn't really care about anyone besides himself, and he just always worries about scoring big. And he's very much a weasel who tries to smooth talk his way out of everything, and isn't afraid to throw anyone under the bus. Janice Lincoln is the daughter of Tombstone. Growing up, she was always smart and always committed crimes with her father. She went to college because Tombstone didn't want her to be in a life of crime, but after she graduated, she wanted to join Tombstone's crime family, and he refused. Because he didn't let her in, she finds a way to get a suit and take the mantle of Beetle. She is the brains of this group and isn't afraid of anyone. She often gets everyone out of trouble. She's just as cutthroat as Boomerang. If you hold her back or slow her down, she isn't afraid to leave you in the dust. James Beaverly always wanted to be a superhero, and growing up, he literally tried everything to get powers, but he couldn't. One day he realized that half of the Avengers started off as these bad guys, but became good. He joined Mr. Negative's group and got powers. He can transform non-bacterial objects into upgraded versions, mostly using this on cars or things with wheels to make them upgraded and cool. He's a big nerd and is a huge fan of superheroes, and he's afraid of people finding out who he is, so he always wears his helmet. James Sanders was a chemist who hated his life, and so when he got asked by the Grand Master to join him in exchange for powers, he did. He went up against the Avengers and lost, and then joined several different villain groups throughout the years, and eventually found himself on this team. Speed Demon always acts like a hotshot, but he's mostly just a coward. He always thinks that he's really cool and slick and awesome, and he never impresses anyone, and he always runs away when things get hard. He only cares about himself and his well-being, and isn't afraid to use his super speed to just save himself. And this is the Sinister Six, and if you were counting along with the people I've mentioned and introduced, you realize that this is only 5 members. And yeah, one of the things that makes this group kind of the worst Sinister Six ever is they don't even have 6 members. Now that we've gotten that out of the way, let me explain to you why I enjoy this run, and I actually feel like it deserves some praise. One of the best things about this comic is we get this perspective on low tier villains. Boomerang is basically the main character, and he talks about how much it sucks being caught all the time and never being a big name villain. It starts off with Fred, Boomerang, in jail. We then see a montage of Fred's crew stealing things to raise enough money for him to get bailed out of jail. It looks like they genuinely care about each other, but Fred couldn't care less. The truth is, Fred only formed this team to use them as pawns in his bigger plans. His dream is to be somebody, beat Spider-Man up, clear his name, and finally succeed. Or so he says. The team doesn't really buy into his leadership, except for Shocker, who is loyal. At one point, the Punisher shows up to take on the group, and everyone bails, leaving Boomerang to face him alone. But Shocker, as he's running away, feels guilty, and goes back to help him. And that's when he learns the truth. Fred owes the Chameleon money, and that's why he showed up as the Punisher, to get his revenge and his money. And everyone believes Fred really fought the Punisher and won, but Shocker knows the truth. After boosting his reputation, Fred pitches a huge job. He tells the crew that the Owl has the missing head of Silvermane. And if you don't know who Silvermane is the head of a huge criminal organization. And he was getting older and wanted to live forever, so he made himself part robot. But during a battle with Owl, his head got chopped off his body, and he could survive without his body. And so what Owl did is he took the head of Silvermane and put it in his hideout. So Fred tells them this story, and they all agree to go on this mission. But one day while Fred's out drinking, he meets a woman, and they set up a date, and when he comes back to the team tells him that they want Beetle to be the leader, and that he's not coming on the Silvermane job. So Fred, being frustrated and upset, and willing to do anything for the job, decides to rat them out to Iron Fist and Luke Cage, and Iron Fist and Luke Cage break in, and Overdrive starts fanboying over the fact that they're here, and he's a huge fan of the heroes. Remember, he wants to be a hero one day. And then Luke Cage and Iron Fist beat them up, and also break Speed Demon's leg, which is really funny. Then Fred swoops in and breaks them out of jail, and looks like a true hero. And now they all want him to go, and the plan continues as regularly scheduled. Later, Shocker confronts Fred about knowing about the Punisher thing and how it was actually Chameleon, and Boomerang reminisces on how Shocker has been one of his longest time allies. Throughout all these groups, Shocker's always been there, and if there was anyone who was close to being a friend to Boomerang, it was Shocker. But after saying this, we immediately see that he betrays Shocker. He knocks him out and puts Shocker in the back of a car and drives that car off a bridge, and now Shocker is at the bottom of the river. And so, once again, this really just goes to show you that none of these villains care about each other, and the only person who actually did and had respect and loyalty is now left for dead. As the team breaks into Owl's hideout, while they search for Silvermane's head, Fred sneaks off and steals something else. A rare painting of Dr. Doom's face without his mask. The whole Silvermane job was just a cover-up so that way Boomerang could grab the painting for himself. The others end up getting caught by the Owl, but Beetle calls her dad Tombstone, who rescues them. Meanwhile, Shocker escapes from the river and stumbles into a junkyard where he actually finds the head of Silvermane. So even though Fred made up the story about the head of Silvermane just so that way he could use the others to get this very rare painting for himself, it turns out to be true. And now Shocker has to decide what he's going to do with the head of Silvermane. Fred, thinking that he got away scot-free, gets ambushed by the Chameleon and his crew. They beat up Fred, steal the Doom painting, and leave him furious. The girl he's supposed to go on a date with shows up, and they start talking, and the girl asks him if he ever misses being a baseball player. And that's when Fred finally says something that isn't completely a lie. He talks about how he does miss those days sometimes. He does miss being a professional baseball player, but he doesn't really think about it too much. And as they're going on this date, Bullseye shows up and tries to kill Fred. You see, Owl didn't like that Boomerang stole his painting, so he sent Bullseye to go kill him. And this is actually a really funny part, where Boomerang says that Bullseye does exactly what he does, but he just got a bigger name and reputation just because he fights Daredevil, and that he needs to learn how to market himself better, so that way he becomes a grade A villain. So Owl kidnaps his girlfriend and says that he needs to get the painting back, or else his girlfriend will be dead. And this is when Boomerang decides to manipulate the whole situation. See, he tells Owl that the Chameleon actually took his form and went in with his crew to steal the painting, and that he didn't actually do it. It was all just a big ruse by the Chameleon. so he manipulates his enemies into fighting each other. And while this is happening, Shocker's still trying to figure out what to do with the head of Silvermane, and that's when Hydro Man comes knocking on Shocker's door for their weekly movie night. And this whole interaction with Hydro Man is once again just showing me how awesome Shocker is. See, Hydro Man and Shocker are friends. Shocker says he's sorry that he can't do movie night tonight, and Hydro Man begins to cry because he says that hanging out with Shocker and having some kind of routine helps him stay clean for a long, and he doesn't want to be this villain. So Shocker lets him in and explains to him how he got the head of Silvermane, the whole situation, and what ends up happening is Hydro Man escapes to go sell out Shocker to Hammerhead. Overdrive and Beetle find Boomerang, and Boomerang explains to them how it wasn't him, that Chameleon took his body and he would never ever abandon the group. And you know what? They believe him. Once again, W Manipulator, this guy is a genius and he always gets away with it just by talking. So Overdrive and Beetle forgive them and figure out a plan to break into Chameleon's hideout to get the Doom painting back. The Owl hires them and also gives Boomerang his girlfriend back, who is super upset with him and leaves him. The Owl also gives the Sinister Six a whole bunch of people who work for him, so now the Sinister Six has a whole bunch of extra people to go break into the hideout, and the raid ends up becoming a huge success because all of these villains. And while everyone's fighting, looking for the painting, we see Boomerang slip off and steal something else. And Overdrive finds the painting and decides to run away with it, not giving it back to the Owl. We return to Shocker, who's freaking out because Hydro Man told Hammerhead that he has the head of Silvermane, and Shocker's just freaking out because he doesn't know what to do. He doesn't want to fight Hammerhead. He just doesn't know what to do. And this is when Silvermane just pretty much calls Shocker a huge pushover, and he tells him he's such a loser and how his friends are constantly abandoning him, trying to kill him, and betray him, and that all he ever does is get screwed over because he has no backbone. And you know what? Shocker agrees with this. He thinks it's his time to shine, and he goes out to find the rest of the group. And so Shocker eventually does find the rest of the group at their secret hideout, ready to reunite with them. But before he steps out, he overhears them mocking him, saying that he was dead weight, that the things have been better since he left, and even Silvermane's head piles it on, telling him once again nobody cares about him. And this makes Shocker furious, and he storms out and starts destroying everything in the room until Beetle calms him down, insisting that it was all just a joke and that they actually miss him. And they're even going as far as to make him the leader of the Sinister Six. And for the first time, Shocker feels wanted. He lets his guard down and asks if they really mean it, only for Beetle to knock him out once again. And you know what they all do? They immediately go, "Oh, cool, the head of Silvermane." They're like, "What should we do with Shocker?" So they decide to bury Shocker alive, once again screwing him over for his decency and loyalty, and shows that they truly never cared about him at all. And with the head of Silvermane in their possession, the Sinister Six plan to meet with the MAGA crime family and finally claim their title as the Crime Lords. But of course, every single member of the team, before the big day arrives, secretly goes off to their own groups. Overdrive secretly cuts a deal with Mr. Negative, Beetle runs to her father, and Speed Demon joins the forces of Madame Mask, and even Chameleon and Owl team up to take back what is rightfully theirs. Meanwhile, Shocker claws his way out of the casket, and what actually ends up happening is Hydro Man saves Shocker and says that he's sorry for betraying him and begs to be friends again, only for Shocker to be fed up and use his blast on him without hesitation. And by the time this big meetup arrives, the stage is set for chaos. Each faction shows up: Mr. Negative, Tombstone, Madame Mask, Owl, Chameleon, and even the Punisher, and what was supposed to be a coronation of the new leaders explodes into an all-out war. And amongst the chaos of the gang war, Fred once again slips away, unnoticed. And this is honestly where this whole story makes sense and the reason why this story sticks out to me. He pops open his trunk, revealing a baseball player tied up inside, and he pulls out the man's uniform. His face begins to shift, and it's revealed what his plan was the whole time. He stole Chameleon's formula, giving himself the power to change his appearance. Fred transforms into a baseball player and walks onto the field, striking batter after batter, completely lost in the moment, and he plays and he reflects on why he did all of this. Not for the power, not for the money, but because the happiest and most complete he's ever felt was all before the crime and the chaos, but back when he was just playing baseball with his friends. And that's when life was simple, and that's when life had the most meaning to him. He gets a phone call from the Owl and Chameleon, and they say that all of his debts can be paid off if he just throws the game. And just like all those years ago before he became a villain, he once again finds himself in this spot. And he really thinks about how his whole life got screwed up because of this one moment, this one choice that he made. And now here he is in the same situation. And what will he do under the pressure? Will he finally pay for the consequences of all the things that he's done and allow himself just this one last moment of feeling good? Or will he immediately crumble again and conform to someone else's leadership? And it's never revealed what he does. And as the brawl continues and this huge turf war happens, the Punisher is about to wipe out everyone. Until Shocker steps in and takes him down, and shocks everyone by revealing that he has the head of Silvermane. And the twist is, Silvermane himself declares, "Bow down to your new leader," showing that during their time together, he grew respect for Shocker, elevating him to an unlikely leadership of the underworld. And it's actually insane, but honestly awesome. Meanwhile, Speed Demon flees off as soon as the gang war immediately started, but it's later revealed that because Iron Fist broke his leg, he actually won a huge settlement in a lawsuit, and now he's rich, making his cowardice pay off. And what happened to Overdrive and Beetle? Well, they try to sneak away with the Doom painting when only Doom himself appears to reclaim it, except that the painting is exposed to be a fake the whole time. The real masterpiece has been under Boomerang's couch the entire story, and that woman that Boomerang was going out with actually reveals to be Black Cat, stealing the painting for herself. And that's where the story ends. And you might be asking yourself, what was even the point of this whole story? Why did I listen to this whole video? And why should anyone care about this version of the Sinister Six? For me, that's actually the beauty of it. The heart of this comic isn't this big battle or betrayals. It's in Shocker. He starts off as this insecure person, overlooked and constantly disrespected. And by the end of the story, he stands tall in his own goofy way, becoming a leader. And that arc alone is one of the reasons why he's the most fun and interesting character in this story. But beyond that, I just love the tone of the story. It's goofy, it's silly, it's messy, and it never takes itself too seriously, but that's exactly why it works. We so rarely get to see the Marvel Universe through this lens, through these D-tier villains, and it's honestly really funny, hilarious, and I thought it was interesting the whole time, and it was a nice change of pace. The real reason that I found this story to be interesting, besides Shocker, because Shocker's dope, love you Shocker, is Boomerang's character. I think it's a very interesting one. He's the main character throughout this story, and while he's not likable and does very unredeemable things, manipulating, lying to everyone, and at the end, it ends up just really being a tragedy. We learn about his life and how he ruined everything, and throughout the story he makes it seem as though he doesn't really care about the stuff in the past, that him being a baseball player meant nothing to him, and now he just wants to be a villain, and he wants to be bigger and better than everyone else. As we see by the end of the story, he was lying, and doing all this crazy stuff, and lying to everyone, manipulating everyone, just so that way he could feel good again. He just wanted to play baseball one last time and hear the crowd cheer his name on, and just have fun. It's a story about a man who is constantly lying to himself just as much as he's lying to other people. It's interesting how the mistake that Boomerang made was a decision that he was proud of at the moment, but would ruin his life. And then he would spend the rest of his time trying to figure out a way to go back to the simplicity of just playing baseball. Now, what's the message in this? What's the whole point of this story? Is it just supposed to be fun, silly? And yes, I definitely think it's just supposed to be fun and silly, and these characters are very goofy. But when I was reading this and finished it, and thinking about what I was going to say in this video, it just left me thinking about how hard it is for me to move on and how badly I want just one thing back. I feel like when tough times come, or when we move on in our lives, whether it's a moment we screwed up in or just a moment we loved, we hold on to those things in the past. I feel like we're all working for a moment that we've lived for in the past, and we want to relive something close to it. Sometimes the hardest lessons is to let go of the past, and it's not easy. Sometimes we genuinely just let our mistakes define us, and we can't let this happen. I can't recommend this story enough. There aren't many issues, and yeah, I skipped over a whole bunch of goofy, silly jokes and a whole bunch of side plots, but it's still just such a fun read. I seriously recommend you read it, and if you're into low-tier villains, I think this would be a perfect way to see how selfish and petty people can be. The comic is perfect. It's a nice change of pace, and the story and their perspective is surprisingly entertaining and left me really thoughtful, especially Boomerang's character, who I had no idea anything about, but by the end of it, I could weirdly sympathize with this crazy, narcissistic, manipulative guy, and it gave me another reason to love Shocker even more. So, hope you guys did enjoy this video about some villains. Make sure to check out the other villains videos in the playlist, and thanks for watching. Peace.